2023 has been a banner year for the Nintendo Switch, heading into its twilight years, but still pumping out fantastic first and third party games. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the top 25 best Nintendo Switch games of 2023 based on what I played. Now, keep this in mind, guys. There are a few titles that have not released yet, or I haven't played it at the time of me recording this video. For example, Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince, that's still coming out. Haven't played that. That could easily be a top 25 game. Also, The Legend of Heroes Trails to Azure. That's a phenomenal game, but I simply have not played enough of it. I'm right near the beginning, only a few hours in, so unfortunate, but it's probably a top 25 game based off of the little that I've played so far. In addition to that, Dave the Diver, just simply haven't played that game enough. That's a really awesome game. That could also be a top 25 game for you guys. But before we get into the official list here, guys, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the top 25 with Sonic Superstars in at number 25. And Sonic Superstars is a game that had far more potential than where it's rated at. This game, if they did a couple different things, it probably could have been higher up on the list. But let's talk about some of the key pillars and what it does incredible. So the game has fantastic visuals. I love the 2D aesthetic with the 3D rendering and graphics. It looks really nice on the screen, runs pretty good for the most part on the Nintendo Switch, a few areas here and there, but overall pretty smooth experience. It's got fantastic music, like Sonic games always have really good music, and this one is no exception. Music is great. The controls stand up pretty well too. There are some issues like with the boss battles in this game. The boss battles necessarily aren't the best in the series or anywhere near being good, but it's still passable for the most part. Sonic Superstars has a very fun, charming aesthetic to it, and overall, in terms of X factors, why it actually made the list, I think that Sonic Superstars does something when it comes to the uniqueness, some of the new things they added in, the elements of the different characters and the co-op multiplayer. They added in some things that you can have fun with family and friends, in addition to just adding in new power-ups and stuff that Sonic has never done before. So that's kind of what shifted it onto the list here for me, and it makes it in at number 25 on the list. Number 24, Master Detective Archives Rain Code. This is a very underrated game. A lot of people didn't play it or kind of forgot about it, but it's really good. It is made from the Danganronpa developers, so the narrative in this game is absolutely wild. The differences in terms of what happens in this game can vary from person to person, but even how the game plays itself is very wild. Now let's go about what it does great. I think that the atmosphere is really good. The graphics are fantastic for a AA style of game. I think that the music and the writing are also really good. That's what Master Detective Archives nails. It really feels like they took so much time putting together this whole write-up for how the game plays. But I think that the biggest X factors for this game are the boss battles. The boss battles, in addition to how you beat the game, like how you actually play it. It's not a normal, typical game. And I think that it appeals to me more than Danganronpa because that's more of like a visual novel type of thing with some other elements, whereas this is an actual adventure. There's 3D graphics, it's Unreal Engine, and you can actually move around and talk to people in that type of way, which is definitely different from what they've done before, and that's why it appealed to me more. But for the fear of spoilers, I won't kind of go into some of the crazier things in this game that really made it on this list. That it's a very unique game. There's not going to be any other game that you play in 2023 on the Nintendo Switch like this, and that the way that you play it in terms of the outcomes and how the boss battles work are some of the craziest, trippiest things that I've ever seen in gaming. So that's why Master Detective Archives Rain Code makes the number 24 on the list. Number 23, F-Zero 99. This game, at first, I wasn't really that impressed, but they consistently started to add in new modes. There's a new classic mode that's being added in as well. And to be honest, it's the best that we've gotten from them when it comes to F-Zero in a very long time. And I think that it has a very unique hook to it. I was kind of hooked to playing it like the first day or so. Haven't really went back to it too many times, but I have went back to it just to see what they've been adding in. And I think that they have some really cool things that makes it stand out. Some of the different hooks to get you to keep on playing. The music is on point like always. It's the old school F-Zero music with some twists here and there. I think that the controls are also really good. I think the structure of the game with having all the different racers, and it's like a battle royale racing, and even some of the strategy that you have to employ to get the different orbs and go up on the track and race around is really good. And the fact that they have continually added in new content and done different things makes it a very fun experience. And the fact that it comes free, quote unquote, right, with your Nintendo Switch Online subscription is definitely a positive thing. I can see them consistently adding more things to F-Zero 99, and overall controls like a dream, plays like it, smooth 60, no problems there for the most part. So for me, F-Zero 99 did sneak in this first block for our top 25 games. Number 22, 30XX. Now, another very underrated game. This is a Mega Man style 2D action adventure side scroller rogue thingy. I mean, it's kind of hard to really put it together in one thing. But what I really liked about 30XX was the music and was the combat, the weapons, and the abilities. I had so much fun just blasting my way through. As an old school Mega Man fan, it's cool to see games that kind of come out and try to emulate that experience in the new age, but do a great job of it. Like 30XX is phenomenal. There's so many cool things that I liked going through the game, and I think that the boss battles combined with the different weaponry that you can get is just awesome. It's so much fun to blast through. And overall, if you look at a game like 30XX and what it tries to do, I think that it has one of the best structures out of any of these games. It's just pure pick up, play, have fun, no BS when it comes down to it. You just get right in. Story's there, but it's not really important for the most part, or at least I didn't really care about it. I just cared more about the action that's on the screen and reliving my old Mega Man X days. That's kind of like what it's like. If you like Mega Man X, then this is your game. So that's why 30XX is in at number 22 on the list. Number 21, Fate Samurai Remnant. Once again, another underrated game that people really didn't talk about much, but Koei Tecmo made this game, and the samurai action style is really cool. Now, here are some of the key factors with this game that made it on my list. It's got a nice style to it, and it runs well enough. But also, too, the structure and the combat are also really good. And what you're noticing with a lot of the games that are going to be on this list is that structure and combat are super important to me. If the structure is not there in terms of how you navigate the world, it's not going to be necessarily the highest up for me. And Fate Samurai Remnant has that. It has all of that. It's got some great upgrades, and it's got a story. The story is actually really good. If you haven't tried this game out, definitely check it out because it is an interesting title that just went completely under the radar. I think that the controls are really good. The movement's good. Once again, there is a PlayStation version if you're looking for a little bit higher quality, but the Switch version definitely gets the job done overall. And although it rated really well, people just seem to forget about it. So Fate Samurai Remnant makes it to number 21 on the list. Coming in at number 20 is Atelier Ryza, the remake. And this game is really cool. One, because it's one of those rare games, only play Asia, Japan. I talked about it recently. But two, it's the first Atelier game in the series. So we all know about Atelier Ryza, which we'll talk about in just a bit. We know about Atelier Sophie and some of these other games that have been rating pretty good and have been selling good as well. But Atelier Ryza, the remake, that's the first game in the series that was never localized at all, and they brought it over. And this game does a number of things really well that made me put it on the list, especially up higher than some of these other titles. And I think that the structure is really fun. The combat in the game is easy, but at the same time still fun to go through. It has all the alchemy stuff, but it kind of makes it a bit more simplistic than some of the other games. So if you're not really big on the alchemy in the newer Atelier games, this one might be for you. You can also rent out party members, and as you rent them out, you can go dungeoning with them or go fighting experience, and you have to pay them though. You have to pay them in order to get it done. So there's a good economy attached to the game, and ultimately you get into a nice flow while playing this game. Some of the X factors why it made it onto the list here is because I love the graphical style combined with the writing and the gameplay. It feels like it all just mended together, or just like melded completely together to where the developers knew exactly the target audience and what type of game this was going to be. And it turned out to be a really cute, charming adventure that I had a ton of fun playing through. So Atelier Ryza, the remake, makes it to number 20 on the list. Number 19, Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 HD Remastered. This one, it could have been a bit lower. I was really struggling between it because the remaster isn't as great as I would have hoped for it to be, but at the same time, what shines through is Monolith Soft's superior crafting of combat in terms of what game that they're looking at. Some of the things that make this game awesome, some of the key points, obviously the music is great, but the combat system is kind of confusing at first. But once you get the hang of things in both games, I think that you're going to have a ton of fun. It's got some great cinematics, some really cool cutscenes, and I think that the story is really what makes it very engaging. It's a revenge tale, but at the same time, there are other, I would say, certain moments that really make you think about everything when it comes to the existence, especially when you're enthralled in that world and you see everything. It's very, very eye-opening overall. Just like all of Monolith Soft's games, it makes you think outside of the box, outside of just the game itself, especially how the characters interact with you, the player. That's like the coolest thing, or one of the coolest things in the game. For those who have played it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 HD Remaster also have some really cool additions in terms of quality of life options that make it a bit easier to play than what we got on the GameCube all those years ago. X factors for this game, once again, like I talked about before, story is fantastic, gameplay, a lot of depth, kind of complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it's really engaging and really pulls you into the battle system. So much depth for you to switch around your cards and your combat and your characters and your party members, so that's a lot of fun too. Bosses can be a bit tricky at times, but still great to go through. So overall, Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 HD Remastered make it to number 19 on the list. Number 18, Persona 3 Portable. And I struggled with putting in some of these like straight ports or some of these games that were kind of there just HD and not a ton of changes, but I think that Persona 3 Portable does enough, and Nintendo fans haven't seen it before on any other platform, so therefore I had it in at number 18. I think that Persona 3 Portable, I mean, there's so many good things that we can go over with this game. One, the combat system is very good. I think one of the best RPG combat systems out there. I think that the length, obviously content in there, is very good. Music is superior. That is one thing that Persona, it's hard to beat them in. The music is so good in this game, and the graphics are good for where the game came from, right? This is originally a PlayStation portable game, PSP game, and they kind of HD remastered a little bit. So, I mean, it's good. It's definitely solid, but it's not necessarily like incredible for Switch standards, obviously. But I think that overall, Persona 3 Portable has so many things going for it. There's a few pitfalls here and there, but the X factors make it the combat system. The combat system, the interlinking system with being able to do all the little side quests and other things, and the relationship building in order to achieve certain things in the game, no spoilers. I think that that's really cool with Persona. It's always been the backbone of what makes the modern age Persona games great, and Persona 3 Portable has that. It really does have all of that. There's just a few things that keep it lower than another game that we're going to talk about in the same franchise, but overall, Persona 3 Portable still is one of the best RPGs that you can play and one of the best games released in 2023 on the Nintendo Switch. Number 17, THEATRHYHM Final Bar Line. Now, if it wasn't my own personal distaste for music games overall, this could easily have been higher. THEATRHYHM is a fantastic game. There's really nothing wrong with it. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the art style, and once again, music games aren't necessarily my jam, but this one stuck out to me. I really enjoyed my time playing THEATRHYTHM Final Bar Line. And for those who've never played it before, I think there's a demo. It might still be up. You can check out the demo. But if not, if you're into music games, this is it. This is one of the greatest music games that I have played that's not obviously like a Guitar Hero or a Rock Band, something that's trying to simulate some type of instrument. But in terms of just music rhythm games, we've had Persona games before. We've had other games like where you play and you hit the buttons, the Miku games from Sega and everything. But I think that THEATRHYTHM might be at the top of the list here, just because of one, the music list. The music list is massive. You've got all sorts of great Final Fantasy bangers in there. Plus, they add in other different franchises as well that Square Enix has. That just makes a super compelling game with hundreds of tracks to play through and a very decent campaign length and gameplay. It's not just like a simple music game and that's all you do. Like, there's other elements to it and other things that happen within the game that make it more of an actual game and not some type of like weird music button presser simulator, if that makes sense. So yeah, THEATRHYHM Final Bar Line kind of surprised me, but I think some of the X factors that made it onto the list here, the quality of the music while you're playing, it's not one of those things like where they phoned it in and it's just like, oh, the quality of the music's not great. It sounds incredible whether you're playing on the PlayStation or the Nintendo Switch, especially if you have like the Switch OLED and you're playing with the OLED screen and the enhanced sound and you got some nice headphones in. It's really cool to play it that way. Very fun. It can really get addictive. So THEATRHYHM Final Bar Line makes it to number 17 on the list. Number 16, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Once again, kind of struggled with some of these ports or remasters, but there is new content in here. And honestly, it plays way better than the original game when I played it back on the Wii. I actually went back and played it. I have it. And yeah, the Nintendo Switch version is so much better to play. One, because of the Pro Controller. That's one of the big things here too that they added in. Pro Controller support is just better than what the Wii was offering at that time. In addition to the graphics looking obviously sharper and better, HD and everything. And the new content added in is great because the game is not necessarily too hard, but some of the new stuff in there with the Magalore and all of that is really good. On top of it, you have like the challenges and different stuff that you can do too to kind of enhance the experience. So overall, I actually had a lot of fun with Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. I thought it was a fantastic experience. Now, not as good as Kirby and the Forgotten Land that came out last year. That's like pretty much the top of the top when it comes to Kirby, but still a very good port of a somewhat forgotten Wii game that was solid. But what I really liked in Kirby's Return to Dreamland is like the easy pick up and play. Like, I think that family games can sometimes be a little bit underrated to where your whole family can pick it up, play very easily, or family and friends. You don't have to worry about certain skill gaps and all that. And Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe actually has that in there for families or friends, people that aren't that skilled to be able to play games with you. So that's also pretty cool too. I did take advantage of that a couple times. So Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe makes it number 16 on the list. Number 15, Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. This is one of those games that's interesting because it's such a departure from what we saw normally from Bayonetta 1, Bayonetta 2, Bayonetta 3. Some people didn't know what to think about it, and still to this day, I think the game isn't good, you know, for some reason because it doesn't play like the original Bayonetta games, but that couldn't be further from the case. Bayonetta Origins is surprisingly incredible for me. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, especially with that ending. No spoilers here, but that ending was fantastic, and it helps bridge the gap between the Bayonetta games. Some of the I would say answered questions originally before you play the end of Bayonetta 3, it's answered in this game, but even without that, just playing the game, even if you didn't know anything about the Bayonetta franchise, it's still great to play. It's very smooth, the controls are great, it's got some interesting puzzles, very fun combat with Cheshire and everything, so I had a blast playing through it. What surprised me are some of the X factors that got it on this list, at least this high, was the upgrading system. I was not expecting that. Nintendo didn't really talk about it too much when it comes to like the trailers or anything, but there is a very good and in-depth upgrading system for Cheshire for you to be able to upgrade, get new health, abilities, different types of attacks and weapons. It's very, very cool. Plus there's like challenge rooms and levels and combat arenas. There's a lot more to this game than maybe what Nintendo was leading on with the trailers. Maybe they didn't want to spoil people, but it's way more cooler than people thought that it would be. I think people just thought it'd be some type of easy, you know, weird baby Bayonetta adventure or something like that, but it's really not. If you play through the game, it's quite good. So Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon makes number 15 on the list. Number 14, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. Some of my favorite games from the GBA era are back and better than ever, completely remade with brand new graphics. You've got new additions when it comes to the online play and different things that they've added in. The original Advance Wars games, those games were some of the most iconic ones because they perfectly captured what the GBA was all about, what Game Boy was all about, being able to play that style of game, that pocket adventure. And now with the Nintendo Switch, you kind of capture some of that, but also you get the console aspect of the online play and some of the more in-depth stuff. You get both games, 2 campaigns all put into one. But overall, I had a blast playing through these games. I just blasted right through them. It was a lot of fun, but they also added in other stuff in terms of like the create maps and the online play. There's more to it. Now, I didn't take advantage of all of that stuff too much just because this year was just packed, especially at the time that this game came out, and this game was delayed so many times. What, we should have played it like, what, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago? I don't know. Nintendo delayed it so many times because of world situations, but to me, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp is still one of the best games released this year, and that's why I have it in at number 14 on the list. Number 13, Persona 5 Tactica, and I had to really crunch to get this gameplay in because it was Super Mario RPG, Naruto Cross Boruto, and it was Persona 5 Tactica all on the same day, and I knew that Persona 5 Tactica could be a game that I really like. And after playing a number of hours with the game, yes, Persona 5 Tactica is a game that's really good. And I think that it's underrated at this point. And let me tell you guys a number of reasons why. I think that Persona 5 Tactica perfectly blends what people like about Fire Emblem and then shrinks it down a little bit. What people like about Disgaea, but makes it not so bland at times or kind of weird. It takes what Fire Emblem, Disgaea does, some of the best elements, combine those together, and then puts its own touch on top of that. And it's very sleek game, very nice looking game, and it has cool things that they do with the combo system, with how fast it runs, with the challenges in the game. And I think that they structure it to where it feels like that perfect blend. Not as slow paced as maybe Fire Emblem with some of the size of the maps, not as bland or is not as weird maybe as Disgaea, but it takes some of those challenges and some of those things that Disgaea does and some of the things that make Fire Emblem great in terms of positioning and strategy, and just puts them into a phenomenal game. The music is just as good as what you'd expect. It's Persona, and the gameplay is right up there. You really feel like it's a lot of fun going through, using the different Phantom Thieves, combining your abilities. Some of them are kind of OP and broken, but on the harder difficulties or on the harder things to do in the stages, you're definitely going to be tested on all of that. So I've been having a ton of fun with Persona 5 Tactica. It might be higher if I was able to get through everything, but right now having it in at number 13 on the list is pretty good considering when it came out and what I had to do to crunch to get more gameplay of this game in. So I think that's awesome. Persona 5 Tactica in at number 13 on the list. Number 12, Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key. This is a game that I almost forgot that came out this year. It came out way back early in the year, I think back in March or so, and it's really good. It's the third game, so obviously people kind of lose interest over the time, but this is the ultimate Atelier game. This game combines everything that they've learned over the series of Atelier Ryza 1, 2, and 3 and makes it as easy as possible to get in and play the game. Now, story-wise, it's a little bit different because they already assume that you know some things from Atelier Ryza 1 and Atelier Ryza 2, but gameplay-wise, they've streamlined and enhanced pretty much everything that you would expect. I love the new biome structure, the fact that you have these different abilities and these different areas that you can go to, and you can use different ways to traverse the areas in the lands. That is awesome. But the combat in this game is phenomenal. It's like spectacular. I think that they didn't do enough showcasing the combat in this game and how the keys that you use. I mean, they did show off trailers and stuff like that, but I don't think that they really showed how cool it can be. It kind of reminds me, some characters at least, of like Genshin Impact, but without all the nonsense that's attached to Genshin Impact or some of the other games that they have, the Honkai Star Rail and all that. So they don't play exactly the same and they're not alike, but just kind of reminds me of some of the moves in the game. I really enjoyed the combat. I think that the story is one of those things, how you feel about certain stories. I mean, there's some things that I thought they could have done better, but overall, still fantastic way to end the Ryza saga. But the X factor here, the biggest thing is the gameplay. The gameplay is fantastic. If you love turn-based RPGs, this is going to be a great game for you. I've never been as high on the like alchemist stuff in there and like the alchemy things, but it's just part of all the Atelier games, so you just have to deal with it. But overall, I think that they did a good job. Like, if you don't want to deal with it, there's like auto stuff, and you don't have to necessarily go through and do all that stuff. So that's pretty good. So overall, Atelier Ryza 3 makes it pretty high on the list, number 12. Number 11, Persona 4 Golden, another game brought over originally PS2 game, then a Vita game, then on PC, then on Nintendo Switch and all other platforms. That's the only reason why it's this low. Like, if this was like a brand new game that came out on the Nintendo Switch, it'd probably be way higher, because Persona 4 Golden is absolutely incredible. It is a phenomenal experience. It blows away Persona 3 Portable in my mind. I think that Persona 4 Golden takes everything that's great about Persona 3 in terms of what they've done, then even enhances it further. But I think that the cast of characters is better. The structure is better. The gameplay is better. Obviously, graphically looks a bit better too. Like, everything is better. Music is one of those things. It's going to be a toss-up what you like more. Overall, I think maybe Persona 3 has a few more bangers that I like compared to Persona 4, but doesn't really matter at the end of the day because they're both really good music overall. But the structure is pretty much the same when it comes to like the social links, and when it comes to some of the different dungeons and what you do and how you go about the game and the dialogue. A lot of that is similar. Persona 4 Golden is just better than what we've seen before with a lot of other RPGs, a lot of other games, even new titles on the Nintendo Switch. I really loved the combat in the game. It's turn-based, the demons and the summonings and like the all-out attacks and all the stuff that you'd expect, right? When you play a SMT game, the press turn system, you exploit the weakness, you get another attack. That works so well. That's the reason why it's been around for like decades at this point, because it works so well and they refine it with every single title, and it's just satisfying. Same thing with Persona 3 Portable, same thing here with Persona 4 Golden. It's just a super satisfying system that is timeless and that it always works. All you have to do is change some other things around it in terms of how you access it, where you get the demons from, where you get the powers from, when you level, when it comes about, all that stuff. But that system itself is just something that will always work till the end of time at this point. Persona 4 Golden maximizes that, and it's really good. So Persona 4 Golden makes it in at number 11 on the list. All right, we're in the top 10. Starting out at number 10, Sea of Stars. This game, fantastic. Not quite the second coming of Chrono Trigger, but you know what? I will take it. I will definitely take it when a developer tries to do their best to emulate the old school RPGs. Secret of Mana, Breath of Fire, Chrono Trigger, Secret of Evermore. All of these games, Sea of Stars takes so many different nostalgic points, nostalgic different things, gameplay elements, and adds it all into one. Multiple different endings, the action command system, having the timing of the button presses to get extra hits or to be able to have defensive abilities. Super Mario RPG, another game that we're going to be talking about as well. So Sea of Stars kind of combines all of that into a very charming and loving adventure with great characters and fun. And I know it didn't live up to everybody's expectations, but at the same time, if you look at the core game itself and the replay value and what you can do, it's a phenomenal experience and still a lot of fun. It's got a heartwarming story, and I think that the biggest thing with this game, for me at least, the biggest thing, the music combined with the vibes. The music and the vibes are great. You gotta have that for old school kind of like pixel art or old school RPGs, and Sea of Stars does that so well. And I think that it creates enough intriguing gameplay scenarios and things with the combat to where it makes it one of the top or best games in 2023 on the Nintendo Switch and just period overall. Next up at number 9 is Pikmin 4, and I'll be completely honest here, guys, I didn't think that I would ever have a Pikmin game in the top 10 in any of my top lists ever. I've never been a huge Pikmin fan. I've always played the games. I thought that they were pretty good, but Pikmin 4 blew me away. I love what they've done, adding in a lot of the different elements from previous games, but getting rid of the like stupid things, getting rid of some of the stuff that was just super annoying and making it more kind of action focused at times. I mean, you still have the strategy stuff and they've always had the combat in the game, but I think that they've made it even smoother and better than what they've done before in the past. I personally love the underground segments going there, which they've done, but they've done it in a way with the doggo that you have in the game to where it makes it way more fun to traverse. Like, you can get around way faster, you can have the dog do different things, you can upgrade the dog as well at the base camp, so there's some RPG or light RPG elements there. You have the saving aspect, which is pretty cool, where you're going about and saving different people, and then that gives you benefits as well. I think it's easier to track your rewards and what you have, and being able to go back and play certain levels and not really worry about too many days going by and everything. There's still that element, but it's nowhere near as bad. And I think that the boss battles are way better in this game. Like the boss fights and everything, the Dandori stuff is really cool, kind of seamlessly mixing that in with the campaign as well. Pikmin 4 does a lot of great things, and I think that it deserves its spot here in the top 10. Graphically, it's great. Music-wise, not so big on the music. I'm not a huge fan of like that weird, like oddball music that Pikmin has, but I think that it fits the elements. It fits the graphical style, which the graphics are great, fits like the sound effects, everything that it does. It's all kind of melds together very well. So that's why Pikmin 4, surprisingly for me, makes the number 9 on my list. Number 8. Metroid Prime Remastered, and this is obviously the original Metroid Prime game, and it's tough because it's already been released, right? But at the same time, Metroid Prime Remastered definitely sets the tone when it comes to a remastered game from Nintendo, because this game didn't just take the game and just put it in HD. Like, they actually redid a few different things and makes it look a bit more clean. Now, I would have liked to have, let's say, an autosave system, maybe a map redesign with like the wire maps, like when you press the pause button. There could have been some things that they could have improved, and if they did improve those things, Metroid Prime Remastered would have been higher on the list. But overall, it's still one of the best games released this year. So many people have not played it, and I forgot about the game. I didn't consistently replay Metroid Prime over and over and over like some people. I think I played it once on the GameCube. I played it again on the Wii, and that was it. Yeah, once on the GameCube, again on the Wii, and that was it. So when I played it again this time, I have motion sickness, so I couldn't sit there and play it like in long stints. I could only play it like in 20-30 minute stints, but I was engaged. I was having fun every single time. And of course, with the Nintendo Switch sleep function, you can easily just pick up right where you left off. So it was great for me, at least when it comes down to it. And when it comes to the gameplay, Metroid Prime Remastered is just phenomenal. The Pro Controller support, the HD Rumble, everything in there just looks really good when it comes to the graphics and the visuals. Even for a GameCube game, the game looks fantastic. Sound quality is really good as well, and the structure of the game, no more long loading doors or anything like that. They got rid of that stuff, but the structure is really good. The backtracking, the new abilities, the combat, the feel of the game is very fun. You really feel like you're Samus going into this first person and blasting away, but then also being very delicate and intricate with some of the platforming and other things that you can do, and the abilities, the X-ray, stuff like that. So overall, Metroid Prime Remastered, absolutely one of the best Nintendo Switch games released in 2023, and that's why it's number 8 on the list. Number 7, Octopath Traveler 2, and man, guys, it is getting harder and harder from this point on to rate the games because there are so many phenomenal experiences. Octopath Traveler 2 is one of those games that after I beat the game, I was still thinking about some of the endings. I was still thinking about the characters, the things that this game does well, the key points. It has phenomenal writing, some of the best writing, if not the best writing Square Enix has done. Listen, I know people love Final Fantasy and all that, but we've got to start looking at some of this stuff that they're doing here with Octopath and how great the writing is. I think that it's better written than many Final Fantasy games. I think that the combat that they've lifted from the Bravely Default, and they've kind of made it more of like a Bravely Default light, but they've enhanced on it with cool stuff like the latent powers. That's really good in Octopath Traveler 2. It creates a very symbiotic and surreal feel to the game, to where you feel naturally kind of going about. And essentially, when you start playing this game in the combat, right, it starts getting to the point to where you know exactly what character you have and what you want to do when you want to do it. You don't really take a lot of time, so the game flows and moves fast like an action RPG, but it's a turn-based RPG, and that's what I loved about Octopath Traveler 2. It became second nature to instantly say, okay, I'm in this scenario, I'm doing this, this is what's happening, I have this many built-up points, I have my latent power, and only good interface and design, you can actually do that without running into problems and bumbling around, and Octopath Traveler 2 has that. Graphics are fantastic. Music is incredible. They've outdone themselves on the music, controls, everything just really perfectly forms together to one of the best RPG experiences, and a very underrated game overall if you look at its absence at the Game Awards for the most part. So Octopath Traveler 2 makes it number 7 on the list. Number 6, Star Ocean, the second story R, and I battled back and forth between the next number of games, 7 through 4, in terms of what were my favorites. Star Ocean gets the nod in at number 6 over Octopath, just because I like the structure more. I'm not as big of a fan of the individual stories that kind of intertwine, and then kind of the weird way that they do certain things with that. I don't love it. It's not the worst, and they definitely improved from Octopath 1 to Octopath 2, but I think that Star Ocean's free flowing, where it's typical, you have your party, you can access them at any time, like you kind of go through and everyone's right there, they talk about certain things and you don't have to worry about certain structured things. I think that's what makes Star Ocean to me a bit better, because when it comes to combat, as an action RPG from the PS1 era, man, this holds up. Now, yes, they did enhance a number of things. It's way smoother, it's a bit faster, it's cleaner, the UI, there's been quality of life additions up the wazoo, but the base core in terms of how the gameplay works is the same, and it's still just as engaging as when I played it for that brief moments when I played it back in the day, and I love that about this game. I think that the voice acting is a little bit sketchy, the writing can be a bit sketchy. I think Octopath Traveler 2 has it beat in some of those and some of the other games that we'll talk about, but overall I had a ton of fun, and I'm still actually playing through. I'm so many hours deep into this game, but I'm trying to get through everything. But there's some great replay value too, because you have the other campaign with it as well. But I've loved what they've done with the visual style, the 2.5D HD, not quite HD 2D, but Star Ocean or Square Enix's spin on that for PS1 games has me hopeful that maybe we get like a Xeno Gears. But overall, Star Ocean, the second story R, was a welcomed addition to the library, to the lineup, and it's a fantastic experience playing through the game. I was surprised on how good it was going to be, because I didn't have that much expectations based off of Star Ocean the First Departure R. Very good game, but still not anything that was too crazy. But this one really blew me away, and I think that we have a clear path in terms of how Star Ocean is going to go from here. At least I think we should have a clear path, because this is the best Star Ocean game that I've played in decades at this point. So Star Ocean, the second story R, makes it number 6 on my list. All right, we're in the top 5, guys, here. This is where it gets tough. Super Mario RPG in at number 5, and I got through this whole game recently. I beat the game. I pretty much 100%ed it. There's a couple thought peaks, and I think maybe like an item or two that I didn't get, but for the most part, I've pretty much completed everything, even the post-game content, going back and beating some of the really tough bosses that have these weird gimmicks to them, despite some of its faults. Obviously, it's a bit easy on the main campaign. There are some random frame rate drops here and there. That's not really consequential when it comes to combat or anything, because everything runs smooth. But outside of that, Super Mario RPG is a masterful experience. Now, yes, I played the game back in the day. I loved it. I beat it many times. But this new version is so faithful that it's charming. It's so faithful, but then also adds on top of that, it makes the battle system even more engaging than when it was back in the day. Now, it's an action command system, so as you go to attack, you press the button, you do like an extra hit, or you get like an extra jump or something like that. But what they've added here is they've added in triple team attacks. They've added in a meter that fills up as you get a perfect block to where you can negate damage, or as you get a perfect attack that does splash damage down, you actually fill up this meter and you can do a really cool triple team attack once it's all full. Based on your party member, you'll have different types of ally buffs or not. But also what I really like is the chain attacks too. The fact that it's like its own little game in another game. How many chain attacks can you get in a row? Because it transfers over from battle to battle. So if you have 6 or 7 and then you get into the next battle, it'll leave off from there. And you want to always see how much you can get in a row before it starts over. So that almost turned into my own difficulty. Like, okay, how many chain attacks can I get? How many times can I perfect block something? And it's tough, man. You lose that chain attack so many different times. So I had a ton of fun. fun. But the music, the sound effects, the HD rumble in the game is some of the best that Nintendo's done. It really feels great to whack somebody with the mallet, or to kick a shell, or to hit somebody with Princess Peach's frying pan, or to swing Bowser's chain chomp, or even to shoot with Xeno some of the star bits and like the finger gun. It kind of rumbles in a certain type of way that's unique to each different weapon. So I cannot stress how great the HD rumble and how much it enhanced the experience when it comes to everything else that I talked about here with Super Mario RPG. The graphics are very clean. The music is great because you have the new music, and then you also have the classic tunes as well, and you can choose between them on the fly. You've got a bunch of UI updates. You have the monster book, you have the scrapbook, you have other things that you can do to add value and content to the game. And like I stated before, the really hard boss battles after you've beaten the game, post-game stuff is really cool, with one thing that I'm not going to spoil, but for those who played the original, and if you do the post-game content, man, like the final boss is so cool. It's such a cool nod and throwback to what the original game, at least what the boss said originally. So it's so cool to go back and do that. So I had a ton of fun with Super Mario RPG. I think it's easily one of the best RPG games, one of the best Super Nintendo games ever made, and one of the best Nintendo Switch games of 2023, and I had a blast, man. It's really fun to go through and play, easy to pick up, easy to play, a bit too easy at times, but still very, very fun. And those post-game bosses will test you a little bit. So Super Mario RPG makes it into number 5 on the list. Number 4, Fire Emblem Engage. There's so many things to say about this game, because on one hand, I can understand what maybe other people think about it, and that's completely fine, but my own personal experience as a longtime Fire Emblem fan, and going into this game looking for just a fun Fire Emblem game that really stresses some of the cool things that Fire Emblem does with gameplay, I think that this hit on all of that. There's some odd things with the story, which I do understand, but overall, this is the best gameplay. X factors here, main points that we have to go over. The main gameplay in Fire Emblem Engage is the best the series has seen. Now, some people might disagree with that, and that's completely fine, but I love the UI. I love the sound effects. I love the graphics. Best graphically, I think most people can really agree with that, but everything blends together when it comes to that. The UI, the graphics, the gameplay, the quality of life features, these are all things that Fire Emblem hasn't always done the best in the past, and they've nailed all of that here. The different classes, the abilities. Fire Emblem is great in this game in terms of playing it. The ally bond rings, things like that are so cool and fun to kind of summon the heroes from the past. So if you're a big Fire Emblem fan, that stuff is great. Also, going back and the paralog battles, going back to certain sections of past games where it has so many different Fire Emblem characters from the past, and you see the different monuments, the situation that they were in, it takes you back. If you're not a big Fire Emblem fan, then these moments don't really hit you too hard. But if you are a big Fire Emblem fan, you can't help but remember some of the moments that you had when you played those games back then, and the situations that these heroes were in. So I love that. The banter back and forth between characters that know each other, the different things that they say when you go on their maps. Fire Emblem Engage has so many great things, and that's the reason why it's so high on my list. The combat and the gameplay is just superior and fun, and most of the time you're going to be just playing the game. Yes, there are cutscenes and story moments, but they don't have you sitting there talking all the time like in Fire Emblem Three Houses. There isn't as much story. They have cutscenes and stuff, but they're not as long, and it's not as much of an emphasis. It's still there, but that's what I loved about Engage. It was a nice little change up. I know it's not for everyone, but for me, I had so much fun playing the game. And that's pretty much the most important thing to me when it comes to my games, is that does it play great? Is the combat great? Is the UI and quality of life, is it fun, easy to pick up and play, hard to master? That's Fire Emblem Engage overall, if you don't try to break the system by having all the Weaver and Riders. You know, if you just play normally how you would strategize, it's fantastic on that front. So that's the reason why Fire Emblem Engage to me is in at number 4. In at number 3, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and this game is fantastic. I love it so much. Heck, I'm still trying to get through all the special worlds, beating most of the stuff in the game though, and I think that Super Mario Bros. Wonder is one thing, and it really just kind of umbrellas into other things, but the one thing is fun. When you pick up this game and you play it, it's all about the fun. The fun and how they get that fun. One, the controls, pinpoint accurate, awesome, feels good to play, better than New Super Mario Bros, better than the classic Marios. Mario has never controlled better than he does right here in a 2D space. But also other things, graphics, music kind of meld together as well. The levels, the stages, that's what's important in a platformer, and that's what Super Mario Bros. Wonder nails. It nails that aspect of new, excitement, wonder, different, weird. And I've spoke about this before, that Super Mario Bros. Wonder feels like Super Mario World, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. These are the type of weird, quirky experiences where you didn't know what was going to happen from level to level, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder brings that back. Now, when you add in all the other stuff that I talked about, especially with the controls, the new badge system, the different things that you can do, the challenge levels, it becomes an experience that feels like that classic game brought back modern, but even better than we had it before. It's a ton of fun to go through. It's got the challenge in there with the difficulty and the stars. It's more playable than ever before because you can pretty much pick any character that you want. You don't have to worry about certain types of abilities with certain characters. You can just pick who you want, and you can customize it with your badges in the game. So that's a ton of fun. And I really enjoyed the challenge levels and some of the extra stuff that you do. You kind of get in bite-sized action to go in there and play. But overall, I didn't expect it to be as dynamic as it was with everything, but it ended up even being better than what I thought that it was. And that's why I was so confident that it was going to be a Game of the Year candidate, and it was going to be as good as the classic Mario games that people have been wanting, because we've been in the new Super Mario Bros. And Mario Maker vortex for the past 10 years. So it's super cool to see that Super Mario Bros. Wonder turned out as good as it did, and it's going to be a game that I'm personally playing for a very long time. Super Mario Bros. Wonder makes it in at number 3 on the list. Number 2. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed, an often forgot about game here. And yes, it's an extension of what we got with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 last year in 2022, but it's its own game. Yes, you still need Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in order to play the game. I wish they did it standalone, but the problem with that is that it wouldn't make any sense if you just did a standalone version of it. I think that making sure that people have Xenoblade 3, or at least playing that first before you get into it, would definitely be beneficial overall, because the game wraps up everything that we knew, or everything that we wanted to know, with Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3, in addition to some other franchises that could or could not be connected. No spoilers here, but yes, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed, what are the things that make it incredible? Let's just start with the aesthetics. Visually, it's not the best game graphically, but it's one of the better looking games in terms of RPGs, especially for what it does. You have this huge open-ended areas, not as big as Xenoblade 3, but still very big open-ended areas. You have fantastic design and style. The characters, in terms of how they're drawn, the art, the world, very good in this game. The music, top-notch. I'd be hard-pressed to find any other music that's better than what Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed does. The music just melds, blends perfectly, and still to this point, I'll use the tracks for my videos all the time because the music is just so good in the game. But the combat, streamlined, the best in this series, and I think that's what puts this game up so high for me, is the fact that they're able to take some of the things that didn't work in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, some of the things that worked in previous Xenoblade games, and put it all together in this one, to where you have one of the best, if not the best, Xenoblade Chronicles combat by far. I love what they did with this. They removed all the different heroes and classes that you can switch between. You don't really need all that. Everybody's kind of locked into their class. You can mix and match with the characters that you do have, and I like that because it focuses in on those characters to where they have their own skill tree. It's really in depth. It's not so small like some of the other ones in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was. They have a very in-depth skill tree with a bunch of different things that you can learn, different things that you can do, and you can customize your character the way that you want to, but ultimately you can kind of get everything in their own skill tree. And I just had a blast playing through this game. It's faster, it's more sleek, the UI is better, it's easier to navigate, and it's a ton of fun seeing the Uroboros not necessarily fully formed, but seeing it kind of like in its way to where it doesn't distract or take away from the characters themselves, because that's sometimes what Xenoblade Chronicles 3 did. I know it's getting a little bit technical here with transforming and then having their own skill tree with Uroboros, but this one, it's still just like the shadows that kind of come out and hit, and there was something visceral, there was something great about that, combined with everything else that I talked about, that just really put Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed combat, to me, at the top of the top when it comes to it. And of course the story, oh my goodness. I mean, once again, no spoilers, but the story is fantastic. This is the best story that I've ever seen in a video game, and that's not an exaggeration. That's not me trying to cap. This story, if you follow it through, if you understand completely, if you understand the Xeno series, Xenoblade 1 through 3, all of the expansions, if you understand some of the other games, this by far one of the most emotional and greatest endings ever to a saga when it comes down to a series of games. I loved it, and I think that's the reason why Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed is so high on the list. It's fantastic. Play it if you haven't done so already. And in at number 1, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I think a lot of us kind of have this game in at number 1, not everyone, but a lot of us, and there is so many things to say in terms of what Tears of the Kingdom does great. Everything that was at the base of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has been improved greatly in this game. Visually, it looks a bit sharper, runs a bit better. If you look at the shrines, for example, those have been improved greatly. You look at the UI, that's been improved greatly. You look at the functionality of your abilities, that has been improved greatly. What you can do in the game has been improved dramatically in terms of just creations and physics. There's so many different things that you can do in this game that you couldn't do in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Some of the annoying things, like let's say when it rains, that has been fixed with some things that you can get in the game, and also potions that you can craft as well. There is everything that was a problem with the original has been addressed in one way or another. Not every single thing, maybe structure wise, didn't change with memories and stuff like that, but to me, I think that they made a honest and good effort to fix so many of the issues that the original Breath of the Wild had. And I personally love this story. I know that there's some potholes in there, and there's some areas where it's not necessarily clear, or they don't explain it as great in terms of it being a sequel, but overall I still felt that the story was better told and better than the original Breath of the Wild, which was a situation, which was a problem that people complained about. And this game obviously has more atmosphere and mood and tone to it in terms of how the characters interact with each other and what happens overall in the game. And I think that the biggest compliment to this game, considering the scope and size of it, is the fact that it doesn't break, it doesn't glitch, it doesn't break down. For a game this big and the size that it is, the fact that there was no crashes, I encountered none. The fact that I encountered really no bugs or glitches. I know some people maybe have a few here or there, but the fact that they spent a year optimizing this game, that cannot be underrated. That cannot just be brushed aside. The fact that this game doesn't have that, because even if you look at some of the biggest games for this year, or the biggest open world games, a lot of them have so many issues. Not even open world games, it can just be like normal games. A lot of them have so many bugs and glitches and issues, and this game, as massive as it is, with all the different physics and mechanics and different things that you can do and the complex systems that are put in place, the fact that there isn't all of that, which The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild had a lot of issues when it launched. It was just so great. People definitely overlooked some of that, but it had a lot of issues, and this game does not have those. The sky areas, be able to go up high into the sky and explore there, have all different type of vehicles to get around in the sky, and the depths as well, adding in that difficulty that I was getting clapped at the beginning of the game because I went down to the depths. That difficulty is added in there, and it provides different and new types of gameplay experiences. It's not just the same Breath of the Wild map over and over, even though there's been a number of changes, like a bunch of ravines and different caves to go into. And even with the Hyrule that they had from Breath of the Wild, there's been a bunch of new stuff, but the sky areas and the depths also add a lot to me, to the experience, in terms of what you get when you go down there, the rewards, and some of the stuff that happens with the different auto build and the different schemes that you can get, so you can just instantly build stuff, which is going to greatly expand what you can do in the overworld, at least the time that it takes to make those things. So for me, Tears of the Kingdom when it comes to the abilities, the fuse, the ascend, god tier abilities, so many cool different things that you can do. The recall, all of that stuff just creates one of the best, if not the best, Zelda experience for me, at least. And I know everybody has their own experiences with Zelda, but for me, it was just a joy to play through. I put over 100+ hours into it, and honestly, I want to go back in and kind of get everything in the game. I just played it so much that I'm taking a break, but I'm definitely going to go back in and collect everything and do all the different shrines and all that, just like I did with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So overall, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is the best Nintendo Switch game of 2023 and my personal favorite game of 2023 as well. What are your top games of 2023? What are your top Nintendo Switch games of 2023? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out our other top videos when it comes to RPGs, top Nintendo Switch games, and more right here on screen. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.